Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Veterans Arts on Air. I am your host, Mel L, and got a special guest with me to start off the new year, the Education Coordinator at the National Veterans Arts Museum, Chris Bespalik-Davis, is joining me today. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it. We've got a lot of things to talk about, including our wonderful education program, which Chris will kind of fill us in on as we go along. So a little bit of old news as we start off. December 6th, we saw our War Stories, Our Stories exhibit, works and mini fair by the National Veterans Arts Museum Teen Council and After School Matters Photo Stories Apprenticeship. So this project shows veteran photo series. This also came along with a great number of our students during last month. Here you can see some of the wonderful works that were put together during this piece. Also, the 100 Faces of War is still up and ongoing through May 15th. So if you have not had a chance to stop by the museum, 4041 North Milwaukee, I recommend that you guys take the time out and do it while we're on some of these cold days instead of being stuck in the house. Some of you may start to go in a little stir crazy. Perfect time to just get out and go and visit the folks at the museum because they are still open. Right? While we're talking about some of the stuff that we've done in the past, we're going to go back a little bit further and we're going to talk about something that took place in our military history about 60, 70 some odd years ago. So we're talking January 10th, 1944. The Servicemen's Readjustment Act was signed, introduced into the House and the Senate on January 11th. It was signed June 22nd of that same year by FDR. This has actually become more informally known as the GI Bill, right? Which for returning World War II veterans who were known as GIs was created to kind of help give them access to low-cost mortgages, low-interest funds to start businesses, tuition funds, things of that nature. The bill was a major factor in the creation of the American middle class. There was an increase of educated individuals, improvements to veteran lives, income growth, things of that nature. So that's a little bit of information about this time of the year, about some of our veterans. So I know myself and quite a few other veterans who have benefited from the GI Bill. So it's always good to kind of know the history of the things that we do and how they got started. Right? So with that being said, though, now we're talking about education. So welcome, Chris. How are you?
Good, thank you.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure having you here on the show.
Thank you.
We've known each other for quite a while now,
Yeah.
apparently, off and on. So you are now working at the museum in education. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do there?
Sure. So at the museum, we work with teens and youth of all ages, but we work to create transformative and meaningful experiences by connecting our youth to the veteran artists that produce art and the collection itself at the museum. So we try to take a look at the artwork and have the youth bring their own stories into the museum and then make art in response.
Okay. And how long have you been doing this at the museum now?
This is going into my third year.
Third year at the museum. How long have you actually worked in education? So
I was a teacher in Chicago Public Schools for over 8 years, and I've been teaching in different educational places for probably about 15 now.
About 15 years. Oh, wow. Yeah, I think I actually got my start in education a little bit after that, about 12, I guess going on 13 years now for me. So it's always good to see and hear from other people about how, they actually got their start. So we're talking a little bit about the youth and the people that you're working with there. So can you tell me a little bit about the NVAM Out Loud project and what it is that you all do there?
Sure. So we have a blog that's called the NVAM Out Loud, and it was started over the summer. We had our first group of teens that came in as part of a teen council, and we had about 15 youth that came in, and they spent the entire summer making art and responding to the museum, getting to know what it was like to work with museum professionals. And they were doing so many really great projects and meeting so many wonderful veterans and artists that we wanted to be able to showcase what they were doing as well. So they worked with us to create NVAM Out Loud, which is an online gallery, but it's also a blog that features the youth voices, their personal narratives, their artwork, and different experiences that they had at the museum. So our big goal with NVAM Out Loud was to create a forum and a space where people could have conversations about the work in the museum, but also for the youth voice to be seen and to be able to be looked at right alongside those of the veterans, and kind of create an intergenerational relationship between our teen artists and our veteran artists.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's one of those artists, myself, came in and got a chance to work with those youth. So it was definitely a great experience working with them. So that is our NVAM Out Loud. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the actual Teen Council?
Yeah, so Teen Council got started over the summer. It was our first time with it, and now we're going into the full school year, coming into our third group of youth in the spring. It runs about 15 youth are paid through After School Matters to be a part of our program, and they spend 2 days a week and then 1 day on the weekend working with us at the museum. They make art, they curate a final show, they meet with different veterans from a multitude of wars and from different backgrounds, and all of it culminates in a show at the end of each semester, as well as then is showcased on the NVAM Out Loud website. So it's we're actually gearing up for our spring session to be starting in February, and we're still taking applications. So if there are teens or educators out there that have teens that really love art and want to have that chance to see what it's like to work kind of behind the scenes at a museum, they can apply online at afterschoolmatters.com. Just look up Teen Council and we pop right up, and we're really always excited to have new youth come in and work with us.
Absolutely. And again, I say the work that the youth there have put together has been phenomenal. Speaking myself as an educator from the standpoint of coming in and just teaching them some basic techniques of some of the art that I do, and seeing what they created and seeing them take it a step further has been amazing. Like every time I walk through there and I see some of the work that they've created, I'm just completely amazed. So, and we've actually got a few images here of our actual Teen Council. So this was the group that we started with over the summer, correct?
Yep. This was our summer Teen Council, and they're sitting with Ned Ricks, who's one of our volunteer veterans who came in to speak with them about his experience serving in the Vietnam War. Since Ned has come in, we've also had other Vietnam veterans. We've had World War II veterans. We've had you, Mel, and other contemporary veterans who have come in and shared their stories. And then the youth respond. The first slide that you showed with the picture, the youth holding up the sign, it's part of the blogging experience, is how do we respond to what we learn, how do we share it out, how do we build conversations about what we've learned, and how do our stories become just as important as the stories that we learn about in programs like the Teen Council and the museum itself.
All right. Take a look here at some other works of our actual students getting themselves involved. Can you tell me what they're working on here?
Yeah, this is our little computer lab we have up at the museum, and those are the Teen Council members working to create their online galleries. So each teen who's a member of our council creates an online gallery on the NVAM Out Loud blog, and then they can kind of put all of their artwork into one spot, and then teens from all around the city, where we have other workshops, as well as now we're pushing to have more national and even international conversations where other teens and educators can go online and comment and respond to the artwork that's there, as well as send us artwork to post alongside the work that was made by our teens in the museum. Okay.
All right. One other thing, I spoke about this during one of our earlier episodes about the London trip, the MozFest. Can you tell me a little bit about the experience of being in London, what MozFest is, and
Sure.
what your experience was actually being over there.
Sure. So MozFest was a international conference to promote an open and accessible web, and it was funded by Mozilla and hosted by Mozilla in London at their main kind of headquarters. And myself and the rest of the NVAM Education team was asked to come out to promote what we're doing online through NVAM Out Loud, but then also to do to teach a hands-on workshop. We did a gift making workshop with our teens. And that was everything that we've done has been posted online, which was really exciting to see artwork that was made in London at the same time that we had youth in Chicago making work. And we even met a school in London, in Leeds, UK, who had seen work that we had done and was responding to it, and then has now contributed to the blog.
Okay, great. So sounds like you keeping yourself pretty busy over there at the museum.
We like busy. Busy's good.
Well, yeah. I think anytime you have a slow time at a museum can always be a bit of a drag. But the museum is always lively and kicking every time I go by, which is always a great thing just to see so many people actually coming in and stopping and just speaking about their personal experiences, some of the stories that come from the veterans that are there. So can you perhaps share one of your fondest memories of interacting with the visitors there at the museum?
Like visitors that come to the museum regularly? I think what I really enjoy is when, one of my favorite, actually, yes, I do have one. I love getting to meet the different people that come in, especially when veterans come in with their families. But that in particular, when we had the opening of 100 Faces of War, there was one veteran who came in who had his portrait done for the show with Matt Mitchell, and he came in with his kids and his wife, and they came in and the kids went running through the gallery to find their dad, and then they saw the portrait, and it was the first time they had seen the portrait completed, and they were just so excited to see their father kind of in this space. And all these people who recognized their dad because they recognized him from the portrait. It was just so, it was really moving to see a whole family become a part of that process of sharing and then growing through art and through the experience of the veteran. So it was a really wonderful moment.
Absolutely. I was actually there myself during that time, and actually I think I met maybe a good 10 or so of the people who were photographed for the 100 Faces of War, and each of them had a different story, a different background. They had come from all over. I had one guy who drove up from Kentucky just for that day. He was driving back out that next morning. But again, for him, it was the first time he had seen the completed work. So I think those types of experiences are always fun to have at the museum. One of the things I like most, I think, is that when you're there, and I'm constantly there just kind of walking around, just taking in the space itself. And, you know, I make it a point whenever I see visitors that are there to go up and start conversations. And I think that's something that we as veterans often miss, is that, you know, we don't have a lot of genuine conversations, whether it be about our experiences specifically or just talking to someone else who's kind of been there, done that as well. So I think that's one of the things that I've always enjoyed about the museum experience. So
and that's where it's a tremendous honor for me to be able to kind of welcome teens and other youth into the conversation. I think very often people will think that there's a certain age that can come or can't come, and I think we're really working to change that. That if families can come in and have conversations and talk and learn so much just by being present, and that's a great first step in sort of honoring and respecting the work of veterans and the work of active military personnel as well.
Absolutely. And I also think that given that a lot of our teens are at that age where they start encountering recruiters at their high schools and things like that, like it'd be the perfect place for them to go and hear the stories firsthand from people who aren't just trying to sell them on the military, but who can actually give them an honest outlook about what they could possibly be looking forward to. So.
And we've had a lot of youth who have said that, who have come in and talked about, that they already have plans to join the military and what that means and sort of what they have to learn from the veterans that they meet at the museum, and then others who didn't have any connection as well. And so then there's so many different things that then can grow from that experience of them being in the space to have that opportunity to ask questions and to learn.
Absolutely. So, You know what? This has been a lot of fun. Like I'm enjoying this whole education conversation that we're having here now. So let me ask you this: what does the future hold for you guys within the next 5 years?
For the museum as a whole, or education?
For the education system as a whole.
I think what we really want to do, me personally, is I want to stop people saying that they didn't know about us.
Okay.
That's always hard because you put so much love into it, and there's so much love in the space, and there's so much energy that goes into it. I really want to get the word out about the museum, as well as sort of our willingness to really extend it out into the community, that the community is a big part of what we do, and the teens are that voice of the community that are coming in from all over the city. And I think we really have the opportunity to launch a national awareness of not just the museum as an individual entity, but as sort of the whole art as a way of responding to experience, and specifically art responding to war and honoring the voice of people who have had a direct experience that they want to share with everyone else.
All right, that sounds amazing. All right, I look forward to seeing all of that stuff come to fruition.
I'll do my best.
All right, we'll see. Well, now we're going to go into one of my favorite segments of our show, which is our Take 5. 5 people that we may have seen in our everyday lives or have come across through television or music or someplace and may not have known has actually put in time as a military veteran. So we will start off with our first one here. This gentleman is known by the name of Russell Johnson. He's an actor best known for the role as the professor in the TV series Gilligan's Island. He joined the Army Air Corps in World War II, earned a Purple Heart when he was shot down in the Philippines on March 1945 during a bombing run. All right. So, up next, we have Sid Caesar, U.S. Coast Guard. Sid is a comedian. You might remember him as Coach Calhoun in the movie Grease. Served in the Coast Guard as a musician where he was a part of the Tars and Bars show. When the show's producer heard him joking with his co-workers, Caesar was switched from a saxophone player to a comedian. Next up, we have this wonderful, happy-looking gentleman here. This is Mickey Rooney, U.S. Army. Famous child actor, performed in films and Broadway shows where he co-starred with Judy Garland. He has had one of the longest careers in show business, performed for over 80 years, appeared in more than 300 films, and was one of the last surviving actors from the silent film era. Joined the Army in 1943 and spent 21 months entertaining troops and working on the American Armed Forces Network. Played a SAR pilot in the film Bridges to Tokyo Re. This next one up, number 4 on our list, is Ephraim Zimbalist. TV star best known for his role in the series 77 Sunset Strip and the FBI, but may have been known more for some of his later works as the voice of Alfred the Butler in the Batman the Animated Series, and as Dr. Octopus in the 1990s Spider-Man animated series. Served for 5 years in World War II and was awarded a Purple Heart for sustaining leg wounds while fighting the German army during one of the battles. And lastly on our list for this month, we have Louis Zamborini, U.S. Army Air Corps. His life is the inspiration for the film Unbroken, which was directed by Angelina Jolie. In May 1943, he was a bombardier on the B-24 Liberator that crashed south of Hawaii due to technical difficulties. He was one of 3 of the 11 crew who survived the crash. After being adrift for 47 days, he was captured by Japanese forces and held as a POW until the end of the war. So that was our Take 5 for this month. One of the things that I enjoy about this particular segment is, for me, it gives me a chance to kind of sit back and reflect on, you never quite know, the experiences of someone until you've actually had a moment to either sit and talk with them or actually looked a little bit into their background. So I've actually seen most of the 5 of them here myself, or heard of them in some way, shape, or form, but never would have guessed that they had actually also served in our military. I do like the fact that, one of the things that keeps the morale up for our troops is to have the entertainment that was served by, back in those days, having a lot of these guys actually join up into the service and then go around and actually entertain then. But for me personally, like, some of the better memories I've had of being in Iraq and going back and forth between Kuwait and Iraq and all of the runs was that those rare occasions when I was actually on one of our bases and would see some of the celebrities or people that would come out just to say hello, not always to entertain, but some were out there just because they wanted to see, and experience what it was that we were experiencing. So, to see that some of them were not only just there to entertain us, but had actually been through it on more than that one day or the 2 days or however long they're out there. So it's always a very interesting run. In fact, I was around the time Arnold Schwarzenegger, like when he was doing the whole governor and the running and all of that stuff. I had a chance to meet him. Alyssa Milano, whom I had met not met years ago, but I've seen years ago as a child on television and whatnot, to actually meet her in person while I was over there. One of those amazing things. Looks like we have a caller. Joe, how are you?
I came a little bit later, but it's 2 other people I think you forgot. It's Jackie Robinson and Joe Louis. And don't forget, when Joe Louis was fighting, he would give a lot of his purses towards the military. And some people think that's what got him in trouble with the IRS.
Absolutely. No,
I just had to mention that.
Oh no, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. It's always good to have you on the air. And like you say, it's one of those things. Like, there are so many of them that have done it. So this was a 5 particular that kind of took me by surprise. Joe Louis, Jackie Robinson, both people who I've admired and have studied and learned the stories on ever since I was a kid. So not to mention them isn't a thing of wanting to slight them or not to mention them at all. It's just this particular segment, I wanted to bring attention to some that I may not have known, and therefore some of you may not have known as well. But yes, Joe Louis and Jackie and countless others. But we will continue this segment, and we will keep it going. So you never know. They may pop up in one of our later segments.
It's interesting to realize something that I didn't know until a more recent show is how many artists have served as well, like that don't necessarily advertise the fact that they did. A lot of surrealist artists, a lot of artists from all over the world who have served and used that as a background and inspiration for the work they make. So that's another good segue maybe for you for next month.
Absolutely. That's one of the things too. Like, working with students now, I working after school program out in the Evanston area, and it's not one of the things that I talk about often, but every now and again it comes up in conversation. And to see some of my students' faces when I tell them that I'm a Marine and that I've also served in war, things of that nature. Like, I actually put up a bio about myself and all of my staff in the lobby of the school that I work at. And so every now and again, like, I have a student who's, even though they've been around and that thing has been up there for quite a long time, may not have known, and will come up to me and say, "Hey, I just read your bio. I didn't know this." So it's always a good thing. Hey, Joe, how are you?
I just want to mention one other person that was very, very important, and we still feel his impact today. It's a person by the name of John Marshall. He was the guy for 20 years, labored to put together the Brown versus Education case before the Supreme Court, in which his protege, Thurgood Marshall, Took over. And John Marshall, John John Houston. He was a graduate of Harvard University, and he was an officer in the Army.
All right. Thanks again, Joe. Once again, always helpful, and we will definitely take a little further into some of these over the next couple of months. With that being said, it is about time for us to go. These shows seem to get shorter and shorter every time we do this. But I would like to thank you, Chris, once again for coming out.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you. Hopefully we'll have you all on again sometime and talk a little bit more about what it is we're doing. So, again, I've been your host, Melvin A. Lyons. I will see you all next month. Peace and blessings.